Hey everyone, thanks for joining us this week for our expert interview series. And I'm super excited to have this person on because they're an absolute expert and you guys are in for a really big treat this week. I met him at the JKIC or No BS marketing seminar a little while ago. We've kept in touch. I've had his book and he's a really great guy, always willing to really give good insight, making a big impact in the industry. All right, so we've got Tony Stark-Polici here, and I'm really excited for him to talk to us more about creating awesome copy that's going to be able to convert and how to actually get in the frame for being able to execute the copy and make sure that you're able to bring in emotions and disassociate the logical clinician type talk. So thanks for joining us this week. And I'll leave it to you to kind of tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you came to be into the expert of copywriting.
Okay, Brad. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. And I look forward to providing your audience with some great tips. And I sure hope that everybody walks away from this time together with some great ideas and new information that they can make an awesome impact in their business and in the lives of the people that they serve. So a little bit about me. I got started in marketing back in 1991 when my younger brother handed me a copy of a newsletter by a guy named Gary Halbert, who was one of the greatest copywriters. And I wasn't studying marketing to get into marketing. I was studying it because I wanted to promote myself as an actor. And that's what I did. And I had the opportunity to spend some of my life as a professional actor. I did a couple major motion pictures. I had small roles. I did do a year of professional theater, and I was in 3 world premieres. And that was great fun until life shifted, and I wound up in a marketing business with my younger brother, a guy named Joe Polish. And we started Piranha Marketing together, which I spent 6 years as the vice president of that company. And that grew into something called Genius Network. If any of your listeners have ever heard of Genius Network, that's my younger brother, Joe. So throughout that journey, I had an opportunity to not only learn the elements of direct response marketing, but how to write copy, and to do that in a business of our own. And we really cut our teeth with direct mail and working with clients in the service business, and that grew into a number of different industries. So I've had the great pleasure to work with doctors and lawyers and all types of doctors, from dentists to chiropractors to medical doctors to plastic surgeons. And it's been a really interesting, fantastic journey to learn so much about so many different industries. But one thing that is, common no matter what business you're in is that we're all doing business with other human beings. And human beings, pretty much, we all operate the same way. There's the same kinds of things that we respond to and pay attention to and care about. And that is a common thread that ties, all foundational marketing principles together, is that they work on human beings. So if you understand human psychology and remember that we're really communicating to people that have dreams and goals and fears and pains and problems, then it makes it a little bit easier to just understand this stuff. A lot of times people that I run into want to make marketing and communicating really complicated. And sometimes it does seem complicated. It's not always simple to find out what is important to your audience, but it all boils down to just humans connecting with compelling, honest, emotional messages. So I've been working as a consultant on my own now for about 20 years. I've had the great pleasure to work with some of the world's most well-known marketers, best-selling authors, motivational speakers, movie stars. I feel really blessed to have had that opportunity. And I think what excites me the most, though, is working with just business owners who are driven and trying to make an impact and grow their business and change. I love the entrepreneur. I love the solopreneur, probably more than I love, big conglomerates and big name companies. It's just that's where I started. That's still where I feel the best connected, is working with small businesses. And so, yeah, that's a little bit of my story.
Love it. And I'm really excited to dig in. I know you've got a presentation prepared for us, on really the 10 superhero directives for copy, and really taking, the overwhelm and kind of stress out of it, and giving, some real feedback and framework to help. So whenever you're ready, you can share your screen and we'll dig right into it.
Okay. Well, let me just give you a really quick overview of why I call these superhero directives. I introduced myself as Tony Stark Polici, and that's my real name. I just happen to look like Robert Downey Jr. And years ago, when the Iron Man movies came out, kids at church started calling me Tony Stark, and it stuck. Well, I didn't call myself that until I fell in love with a woman named Donna Stark and married her. And so when we got married, she added my name to hers and I added her name to mine. So I really am Tony Stark Polici and she's Donna Stark Polici. But that a couple of years ago, I got this idea to start a team of superhero copywriters called the Copy Avengers. And so that's where this superhero theme comes from. So what I'm about to share with you guys right now are what I call the 10 superhero directives, which will help you write better marketing messages. Now, today we do an awful lot of digital marketing, and many of your listeners probably send out emails, but these apply to any type of messaging. So as we go through these, I want you to think about how this can apply to what you're doing in your business. So superhero directive number 1 is always know your audience and always provide value. Okay, so who is this going to? And what is important to them? So tell me a little bit about your listeners, Brad. Are they all in the same in the same space?
Basically healthcare. So we've got a variety of chiropractors, massage therapists, acupuncturists, physical therapists, and so on.
Okay, great. So for example, if we have a chiropractor who's, putting out a message, then what kind of pains and problems are his target audience? And my wife writes blogs for the chiropractic industry. So we know that there's just myriad different conditions that can be impacted by that. The same with acupuncture and everything else. So who's this going to and what's important to them? And then does your message provide any or all of the 3 value elements? So oftentimes people are focused on selling, but really selling should be the last thing that you're focused on. Think about educating your audience. What can you tell them about their pain or problem that will help them know how to find a solution? How can you be entertaining? How can you take a story about ending their pain or problem and make it fun? And what can you do to provide some escapism? Human beings, we naturally want to find a way out of our stress, out of our pain, out of our problems, and we look to escape. That's why you have things like, reality TV shows that, people watch, as they want to escape from their everyday life, their stresses and hassles. So if you can find a way to work any of those 3 things into your message, you're already going to be ahead of the game. All right. So superhero directive number 2 is infotainment is king. So like if you give people a great tasting martini that nourishes them like a green drink, they're going to love you. So think about combining something that is going to make a person very interested, but also give them a benefit as well, right? Add value by providing something that is also easy for them to consume. Also, too often people get stuffy and write like they write like they're back in English class. And you really need to inject your personality into every email and every message. Um, People want to do business with individuals that they know, like, and trust, right? And we all have um, something about us that makes us uniquely who we are. And don't wear a mask, don't try to be somebody that you're not. Inject your personality into your writing. You will attract people that are connected to that. And people buy more from folks that are in good humor. So, Brad, you like to work with people that are fun to be around, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So, if you've got jokes, or you've got a funny little story, or something that happened with, a patient or a client, or something that happened in your life that adds to the topic that you're writing about, and it can be funny, make sure you put that in. And the absolute 100% best way to communicate with people is to tell stories. We are, like, I hate to use the term wired for stories. Maybe it's just the way that we have, grown as human beings from oral tradition back before we had all these books and computers and everything else. We talked, and so we're just, we love a good story. And then another super tip is find a way to piggyback off of pop culture. So if I've got kids, right? They're a little bit older now, but they introduced me to this thing called TikTok a few months ago. And at first, I didn't want anything to do with it because I thought, well, I don't care about TikTok. It's just a bunch of nonsense on there, girls twerking and stuff. Well, it's not. It's so much more than that. But the great thing about this little pop culture element is I get to see what people are talking about, what kinds of things are trending, and that allows me to communicate, in relevant ways to my target audience in different niches. Does that make sense?
Totally. I think that's a super, super important part. It's like looking at what's around and the research and like what people are asking about. I look at Facebook groups a lot, or, books, and seeing like what are people looking for back pain. What are people, questions are they asking, and all that kind of stuff. What do they believe to be true at this stage, whether it's true or not, kind of thing.
Right. And that's important. What do people believe to be true? If just look at what's been going on at the time of this recording, we're in, we've just been through a year of the pandemic, right? And there's been so much information, misinformation, everything else. We've got conspiracy theories. We've got real theories that may seem like conspiracy theories, and there's all kinds of information out there. So it's important to look at what people think works, as well as what actually does work, and find a way to work that into your messaging, because stepping into the conversation that people are already having in their head is one of the most important elements that I do as a copywriter. I want to tap into something that they're already thinking about. Okay, superhero directive number 3 is email often, like maybe even every day. This may seem very different for clinicians to the idea of sending an email out every day. So, and I don't want to suggest that that's something you have to do, because that can be very burdensome. However, don't get stuck in this, well, I don't want to email or send messages to my patients and my clients too often because I don't want to bother them. I think that we have to be top of mind with our audience if we want to be effective with them. Okay, out of sight is out of mind, and more touches means more brand capital. All right, and by brand capital, what that means is you've got a lot of messages and a lot of things coming at you every single day, and I don't ever want to be just the person that people come to when they absolutely, you know, have no other choice, or they only think about me when a certain thing happens. I would like to be top of mind in other areas. So, for example, let's say that you're a massage therapist, and if all you're doing is sending out messages or letting your clients know about certain specials or something to do with massage, that's fine, but you're limiting yourself, right? You could, why not send them a recipe for a great smoothie you found? Or why not send them an article about a cool place that you visited on your vacation, or even a local place, a new restaurant that maybe you've tried? You know, this is something that adds value in a very different way than they're expecting for you to add to their life, that will make an impression on them and keep you top of mind.
Love it.
And of course, more offers made means more money earned. The more touches that you can give to people, you know, the more chance you have to make a sale or get a referral. So, for example, if you're just sending out promotions, okay, that's may or may not have, you know, like move the needle for you. But if you're sending out on Mondays, let's say that you send out a Monday moment of wisdom or something, and it has nothing to do with whatever your particular business is. It might have something to do with just life wisdom. And at the very end of it, you say, and by the way, you know, don't forget that this month we're doing this, and you can, you know, contact our office or click here to take advantage of that. Your selling doesn't have to be always right up front. It can be an afterthought if you're sharing something of value. And but the more times you touch people, the more opportunity you have for sales, and like I said, referrals.
Totally. And I think one thing with that too is, and this is a big thing I see, is people get stuck into, well, my only offer is to sell them, you know, training or therapy or nutrition or whatever. But offers can also be things like, hey, we're doing a workshop. Would you like to join us? You know, we're bringing, like, I would bring experts in to talk about sleep. So I would use different types of offers that build value and are not necessarily just straight up buy my service, but often will kind of add value into that. So I think that that's, you know, kind of important, you know, for the health practice world, to not get kind of stuck into just thinking, well, I only can sell therapy. Well, there's lots of other things that you could sell into that.
That's a very great point, Brad. Yeah, you're really speaking some wisdom there. You know, I had a client that built a huge following in the running niche, and what they did was they print T-shirts and the bibs and little goodie bags and stuff for races. And he built this huge list of runners, and you know, there was all kinds of things that he was able to offer them, like, you know, foam rollers, all kinds of different things, green drinks, you know, everything that was tied into health, into fitness and sore muscles and everything else. So absolutely, there's great opportunities even in your local area. So if you're a massage therapist, you could partner with a number of different people in your own town and do like joint ventures with them, that would offer, you know, like, for example, stretch labs are a big thing that I'm seeing across the country, right? I don't know if that's happening where you're at, Brad, but it's like a pretty trendy thing now, these stretch labs. And, you know, chiropractic and massage always work together, but I've never seen either of those clinicians refer me or anyone else out for actual stretching. But that's a super important thing, I think. And a lot of people know that stretching is important, but just never get around to doing it. And so, you know, that's a way you could work do a joint venture with somebody else and bring in additional revenue.
100%.
All right, superhero directive number 4, keep it fresh and add variety. Okay, nothing kills a connection or stalls a sale more than being boring and predictable. Don't talk about the same old thing all the time in the same old way. It's important to just keep it light. I mean, sometimes we tend to take ourselves too seriously. And while it's important to be professional, it's also important to be human and relaxed a little bit. Variety keeps people interested. It keeps them opening the emails and it keeps them clicking through. So if you continue to send the same type of information out, day after day, week after week, month after month, then people are going to stop opening it because it's like, this is the same old thing. John or Jill, they're always sending me the same kind of stuff. I don't care about this anymore. So keep them guessing, add a lot of variety, switch things up. And it's really not as hard as you think. Some of the ways that you can do this are, again, we mentioned pop culture earlier, but if you just look through what's going on in the news, or if you there's I'm blanking on the name of it now. There's a publication called The Hustle, and they cover a variety of different topics. And you could take a look at something like that, or look at a number of different places where satire and different things where you can find topics to come up with different things to talk about. Your Facebook page is another great place to do that. Your personal Facebook page, and look at what your friends are talking about. Look what people are talking about. Go on social media and find out what people are talking about, and you'll have so many ideas. Like, there's never really any excuse not to come up with a new idea because they're all around us. We just tend to get boxed in because we think that we have to talk about a certain thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, like, why do you think people get sort of immune to that? And I'm sort of noticed that myself, even with certain people that I like their content, but I'm sort of like, well, it's kind of the same sort of thing. And, like, what's sort of creating that, desensitization to, like, wanting to respond or open those emails, like the excitement factor kind of, like, drops off, right?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, Brad, but I have this theory that a lot of it has to do with how we are being conditioned by social media and instant gratification, and how those, the devices that we carry around with us all day long have kind of trained our brains, and the dopamine hits and everything else, that we're really looking for a lot of variety on a regular basis. And I'll give you a perfect example. I've been a subscriber to Seth Godin's newsletter for over a decade. And Seth always has great stuff. I mean, there's really, I could never open one of his emails and be like, this stinks, right? But there were times that I stopped reading it for long periods of time just because I'm like, I've read so much of his stuff, like what's going to be new? And it really doesn't make any sense, but I think it's just because I've grown accustomed to it, and there's nothing new for him to teach me. So the thing about Seth is that his content always followed a specific kind of format. So when you keep people guessing, when there's always something new and fresh, that's why we love social media. Because what's happening, what's new, what's going on, and there's scientific reports, and I don't know how accurate they are, that say our attention span is like 8 seconds now, which is about that of a goldfish. So if that's true about where we're looking to get these little dopamine fixes, then it's important to add as much variety and try and find different things to talk about to keep our audience engaged and excited.
Yeah, it makes sense. Totally.
All right. Superhero directive number 5 is soft sell every day. Okay. Sell every day without backlash. This feels more natural than a hard sell, and it becomes part of the experience rather than a commercial. And, a soft sell really is a just a way of reinforcing that you offer a solution to the problem. So, like, if you're telling a story, and you remember, remember, if you're struggling with back pain, then give us a call. We've got at least 3 different things that we can suggest to help you eliminate that. Or if you've had some numbness in your hands, then here's a couple of things that you can do. And if that doesn't work, then schedule an appointment, come in, let's take a look at it. That's a soft sell kind of approach. Superhero directive number 6 is tease, tease, tease. So in your marketing copy, don't always focus on selling the click or the phone call. All right. It's much better to pre-sell your product or your service. Curiosity is really the number one factor to getting the sale. So how do you tease? Here's an example for a chiropractor. Wondering if there is a different way to eliminate back pain. Okay, that might be your subject line. And then you could go in and you could tell a story about a mysterious, I'm just making this up off the top of my head. So, but there's a man in Timbuktu who discovered this mysterious position that, if maintained for 15 minutes, would eliminate his back pain, and blah, blah, blah. So, and now you've created this curiosity factor, and we've implemented this practice into how we treat our patients. And if you would like to find out what it is, do this, do that, do this, do that. Not the best example in the world, but I hope that it made sense. Did that like come across, Brad?
No, it totally makes sense. And we kind of chatted about this before. Instead of just saying like, hey, come get an adjustment, come, we'll help you overcome your shoulder pain. It's like creating more of the story and dynamic that will kind of draw people in, and using some of the emotion with it. So, yeah, I think that's super, super helpful.
Right. Okay. So now I just got done telling you, don't always focus on the sell, to focus on, don't always focus on the click. But when I say here, superhero directive number 7, focus on sales, not fancy marketing speak metrics. What I mean here is, oftentimes if you're working with like a marketing company or an agency or a social media marketing company, then they may try to throw fancy terms at you to baffle you and confuse you. So don't pay attention to vanity metrics. All right.
Likes,
right.
Impressions.
Exactly. Yeah. That nobody cares. You may care that people are liking your stuff, and your teenage child may be very impressed that she or he has got 600 likes on that, new selfie. But ROI is really the only indicator of success when it comes to your email and your social media. Like, what is the the return on your investment? So only track vanity metrics to gauge your list health, engagement and likes and things like that. If you've got 7,000 people on your email list and you get 100 opens, then there's a problem. If you've got equally that many people on your social media pages, and the report shows 9 people saw this, 2 people were engaged, 4 comments, then there's a problem with your engagement. Superhero directive. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. These are 10 other important markers to think about when it comes to metrics. Replies and engagement. Okay, clicks means engagement. That's far more practically useful than just about just about anything else, even opens. Opt-outs, not engagement, but if you're getting a lot of opt-outs, then you aren't doing it right. Complaints or trolls, ironically, this can help your overall delivery since they are engaging with you. Questions, even more engagement. Questions are fantastic. And they can make great fodder for future emails. So if you are active on social media and you're seeing, or even emails, right, encourage your patients and clients to ask you questions, because sometimes those questions will give you fantastic fodder for new stories or new examples. Customer service request, obviously, probably the greatest opportunity for selling there is if somebody has, an issue or a problem. And then for email with spam complaints. Now, spam is not a good thing, but it does tell you that your lead gen and your curation is weak. And it's an important thing to know in the grand scheme of things, how many spam complaints you're getting. So you may need to change things up. I don't know if a lot of your listeners are having problems with that, but as you grow, it's eventually something that you will contend with. All right, superhero directive number 8, focus on retaining your true fans. What is a true fan? Well, a true fan is somebody who is, they're so sold on what you've done for them, right? You've made such an impact in their life. They really look to you as somebody who has changed their health, has helped them, and they tell people about you. So you want to continue to nurture and keep those people excited. And so this first point here, following above rules leads to short-term unsubscribes and hate. The above rules was really the points that I just went through there. If you ignore the members, I'm trying to talk in correct terms here, but I think about lists. If you're ignoring the people on your list or your patients, your clients who are your biggest fans, and you're paying more attention to the naysayers, that's really the wrong place to put your energy. You want to convert as many people to your way of thinking, your way of approaching things as possible. And let the ones who don't want to be around leave. In other words, don't try to make converts out of the people that can't stand you, right? It's just way too much work. And I would much rather go on to the people that like what I'm doing, who resonate with my message. And that's what I encourage people to do as well. Does that make sense?
That's a strong point. And I think that that's a big reason that people don't like to message your list or go out on social media or have positioning, because they're worried about hate or people might not like them and whatnot. And they're worried about that aspect. And it's partly like, those are not your ideal clients that you probably want to work with anyways. And it is good to be kind of polarizing for what you stand for. No one wants to be someone who's generic. They want to align with people. And in today's world, like, we just came, in the US, like with the election, it's very polarizing. Like there's one side here, there's one side there. There's always that kind of thing. And people, I feel like you've got to stand for something and not worry that someone's upset because you said what they believe is wrong, to kind of censor what your thought is in terms of like back pain or the way you treat or what you believe in and stand in. I treat very differently myself, and I'm like, very outspoken with what I believe in. I'm not trash talking other people, but I make it very clear in terms of what I believe in and how I treat and that kind of thing as well. Same thing for marketing, like how I market and grow the business and whatnot. So that's kind of my thought. I'm curious to hear yours on what you think of that.
Oh, that's absolutely, yeah, I absolutely agree. One of my favorite sayings, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And it's the point that you brought up about the U.S. politics is very well placed. It's a timely point, because On both sides of the political lines here in the US, you will have people vehemently fighting against the same point, both thinking that they're right. And, you know, they both can't be right. In most cases, they both can't be right. In some, maybe. But, you know, wasting time trying to bring people over to your side, and ignoring the people that are already on your side but don't know about you yet is a bad place to spend your time and energy. So I like people to self-select whenever possible. You know, I create messages and marketing and content that will appeal to the people I want to appeal to, who are going to line up with what I have to offer them. So that's where your focus should be. Superhero directive number 9 is build your personal brand. So people pick what to open based on the from section. So if in this point right here really applies just to email, it could apply to direct mail as well. But if your if your from section has, Monterey Chiropractic Clinic, that may be okay. They know who that is. But if it says your advocate, Dr. John, or your friend, Dr. John, that has a little different appeal to it. Same with a direct mail letter. You know, if it's got John Smith and then an address versus your business name, it will have different appeal, especially if you're going out to a cold audience. Frequency leads to people knowing, liking, and trusting you, right? We talked about this earlier about mailing often, mailing frequently. Everybody's busy, right? Brad, you're busy. I'm busy. Everybody listening to this is busy. And you may send out one great message, right? But it lands in people's inboxes at a time in their life when they've got so much going on that they completely miss it. And you wonder, gosh, why didn't that great message garner any results for me? Well, it wasn't the message, it was the timing. And great marketing, is the combination of the right message to the right market at the right time. That's one of the Dan Kennedy things that I learned, decades ago. So frequency is really important. Make sure that you continue to send good content to people. And when you do that, that's how you build that relationship. That's how you build that like and trust. And then educate your audience on your ways. All right. And what I mean by that is, what is your method? What is your unique mechanism of dealing with things? Two practitioners in the very same area of practice, 2 chiropractors, 2 massage therapists, 2 acupuncturists, may treat the very same problem in very different ways. So why do you choose the way that you treat people? Why do you do that? Explain that to them. Educate them on why you believe that's the best approach, because that establishes your credibility, that positions you as the expert. And it also helps educate your patient and your customer on how they should behave and receive that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. And superhero directive number 10, be yourself, and whenever possible, be twice yourself. Okay, so being yourself is the number one best way to differentiate from the crowd. Earlier, I talked about putting your personality into what you're creating, and that's really important. You don't want to be one person in your marketing and another person in person, or one person in your business and another person out in public. If you can be authentic and just be who you really are, it's going to work out best. I really believe that. And then write the way you talk. I also talked earlier about sometimes when we write, it's like we're back in English class and we're trying to get everything perfect, to avoid the red ink on the paper. Well, people say things like gonna and come on and what's up. Write the way that you talk. If your email sounds conversational, if your messages sound conversational, you're going to get a much better response. Obviously, this is going to depend on your audience, okay? The way that two surgeons talk to each other and the way that two dentists talk to each other and the way that two chiropractors talk to each other might be different than the way that they talk to some of their patients. Not necessarily, but it may be. So your audience plays into that as well. But don't, when you write something, when I write something, I always read it out loud so that I can listen to myself say it. Because boy, even after writing for 20 years, there's times I write stuff and I'm like, what am I doing? What was it? Was this old English? Today is the day that I would like to go to the store. Like, hey, I want to go to the store, right? And then put your personality into it with some passion. Oftentimes we're restrained and we hold back on things, but there's nothing wrong with putting things like kapow or awesome with extra letters and so with a bunch of O's. Put some passion and some energy and some emotion into what you write, so that your readers really feel that it really comes through in what you're doing. And those are my 10 superhero directive suggestions.
Awesome. That's super valuable. And I think it's a great starting point to really get people, thinking about the right steps. And I know we kind of chatted a little bit before about like, that's kind of a struggle sometimes with people, is like, well, what is my framework? Where do I start? And I've got all of these kind of things. And I know you kind of said that you had a framework to follow that I think really simplifies everything and will help people kind of get dialed into taking those concepts and really putting pen to paper, so to speak, and actually executing it and sort of thinking about it.
Yeah. So this is really, from the standpoint of me as a copywriter, but it is also important in any kind of communication. So there's 4 steps that really simplify things. And the steps is your headline, your lead, tell your story, and then make your offer. So let me break that down for you. So a headline, when we're reading a newspaper or we're scrolling through anything on Facebook or opening emails, I know that when I open my emails in the morning, I scroll through the subject lines and I click select all, and then I uncheck the ones I don't want and I delete the rest. And the ones that win are the ones that have something in there that appeals to me. So that headline. So think about, what is the most compelling statement or thing about what you're about to write is your headline. Okay. So your lead. The lead is, what is the primary point that you want to get across? So if my headline is urgent message, then my lead might be for the next 3 days, this is there's going to be a high level of pollution in our city. So it's important that you do this. Whatever your lead is, it needs to kind of be the summary or the thesis statement for what it is that you're going to write. And then tell the story. So the story, as I mentioned earlier, is what is the tale that is weaving this point that ties the headline and this lead together, and then make the offer is simply like, how do you tie all of this together? What is the action you would like the person to take? So it's if you can remember those 4 simple things, it's a way to structure your messages. And I'll break it down in a little bit different way. Even if you got out a piece of paper and you put headline, what will grab the person's attention? Lead, what will capture their interest and let them determine if this is important to them. Story, what will entertain them or help them to see themselves in this situation. And then the offer is what will solve their problem, ease their pain, make them feel better, or help them escape. And that is a really great framework to just help you start figuring out how to write things and to not struggle doing it.
Yeah, I love that simplicity. And I think, sometimes people get caught up into thinking, well, how do I make the perfect thing? And I know I've been there myself. And I think part of it is just like taking action and implementing. And then as you start making offers, like, some of your principles, you're going to start seeing, what do people resonate with? What do they respond to? As you're doing your marketplace research, you're seeing what conversations people are having and questions they're asking. You can start to create more things. And it's just taking action and doing it. Because sometimes it is, myself included, where you kind of are overthinking it sometimes. And it's just like, you're better off getting something out there and practicing it and knowing that it's going to hone in over time, than just not doing anything at all.
Yeah. It's overthinking things is definitely an occupational hazard, right?
People will forget what you wrote last week anyways, like a post or whatever. People will forget about that most likely.
Right. Yeah. It's easy to get into that, for me, sometimes it's perfectionism. Like, God, I want to do this right. How do I do this right? And really just sit down and just start writing,
Yeah.
Write something, put something on paper, it'll come out. Now, if you truly are stuck, all right, if it's not a matter of overthinking things, one of the things that is really, really helpful is to get out of the environment that you're in and go do something else. Okay. It could be taking a walk outside. It could be listening to some music. It could be picking up a book, anything to just shift what you're thinking and give you some inspiration. Inspiration comes from the strangest places. But where it rarely comes from is a mind that's locked into trying to figure something out that, that has been stuck. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah, I think that's a huge component. Like, you get locked in a tunnel vision, and Dan Sullivan talks about it, right? Like, getting yourself out of the environment you're in, and that's where you can get breakthroughs, and you just start seeing different patterns, and it helps unlock your mind. And I mean, if you're going to do other things, it also gives you storyline. Like, hey, I was feeling really frustrated, and that's the same concept. You're feeling frustrated about writing copy, or getting your ads to work, or hiring someone, or whatever it is. Well, that's a story in itself, and you start to be able to adapt like how you're feeling into being able to create those stories and become more human, so to speak, and less of a robot, right?
Right. One of the things that's really so effective that even I don't do a lot, and is just talking about what's going on in your everyday life. So often I see people doing this, and I think, God, that's so simple. Why don't I do that? I've got a ton of stories about stuff that happened in my everyday life. And people are interested in that. We all like to just hear what's going on in other people's lives.
That's why Kim Kardashian is so popular.
Right. Yeah, look at these reality shows. But I mean, in a way, some of those shows are like escapism, but then you look at, I forget what it was called. There's, I don't even want to use the terms because it might come across as offensive. But the point here is something as simple as what happened with your kid going to bed the night before, or a couple of weeks ago, I was up. I was early. I had a workout really early. It was great. Things were going fantastic. I was making some coffee in my French press that my kid gave me like 20 years ago, and I was multitasking. And so I went to press the plunger down and I wasn't looking, and I slid the French press off the counter. It shattered. I got boiling hot water up on my arm and coffee everywhere, you know, and that in itself doesn't sound like a story, but once I swept everything up, there was one piece of glass that I missed, and it was sticking up a nice shard. And I'm walking around in barefoot, and just as I put my foot on it, I felt it, and I stopped. And I took a picture of it, and I've got this whole story around my day based on that coffee spill and that piece of glass that I stood on, about gratitude. And it's like a huge story. I can't tell it now, but it's just an everyday experience that I could have chalked up to just a pain in the neck because I spilled my coffee and broke my French press. But instead, I've got a great story. Now, all kinds of little things like that, anything like that can be fodder for something to talk to your audience about.
Awesome. I love it. I think you've provided like a lot of value. So I want to thank you for coming on here and sharing your expertise and giving some good, valuable resources for us as practitioners to be able to really connect with more people and help make a bigger impact and really help it grow their businesses and whatnot as well. So I really appreciate you coming on. Any sort of final thoughts before we sign off?
The final thoughts that I have is just remember that people do business with those folks that they know, like, and trust. So if you can think about adding value to the lives of the people that you serve, how can you add value? And it doesn't always have to be in a big way. It can be something simple. As I said earlier, if you're sending out, tips about restaurants that you visited, or maybe a recipe for something, or a recommendation on a movie, even tiny little things that have nothing to do with the primary service you provide, but will be of interest to your people, will endear them to you and add value to their life. So just continue to do that.
Awesome. And if people want to learn more about you, how can they find out?
Well, I wrote a book that really is useful for anybody who wants to communicate. You don't have to be a copywriter. It's good for anybody that's a business owner, entrepreneur, service provider, and they can get a copy of that at grabtonysbook.com. And if you want an autographed copy, there's an option to do that there. I don't know why you would want an autographed copy, but just in case, I'm happy to do that.
Hey, I got mine. So.
Hey, yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And if you can also find out about my team, the Copy Avengers, by going to thecopyavengers.com. And yeah, so Brad, thank you so much for allowing me to come on and talk with me today and talk to your audience. And I sure hope it was valuable.
Yeah, extremely. I really appreciate it. And thanks for popping on.